Hello and welcome back to a new Rage Gaming video. My name is Olo and today we're talking Cyberpunk, which comes out in a matter of days, and the hype, the anticipation, and also the naysaying and negativity are both sky high. Any tag where people are talking about CD Projekt Red or Cyberpunk, and you'll see people who are blindly excited or brutally disheartened. Cyberpunk is a big game and it's got a lot of big reactions to it, to the point where it doesn't really matter how good or bad of a game it is. I mean, fair enough, it's been delayed so many times that cursed yellow screen spawned a lot of memes at this point. My personal favorite is the one where they announced they were never working on Cyberpunk in the first place. But seriously though, the game is a big one. Projekt Red are obviously very successful and well-respected game devs. The Witcher series speaks for itself, it was incredible. Therefore, with that, as we go into this next game, there's a lot of blind trust and faith based on their history, or hate everything they'll ever make because it's popular. And as we all know, fellow Reddit users, popular equals bad. So let me just get to the point and be clear with you guys who are already writing your comments having not watched even 30 seconds of this video. I'm very hopeful for this game, and I think it will obviously be a huge success. No amount of negativity on Reddit or somewhere is going to change that. However, I do think it would be stupid and unfair to not acknowledge the legitimate concerns for Cyberpunk from reasonable people who aren't blindly salty. And that's what this video is. Let's be honest, man, the game is a little overhyped to a level that it might not even be able to live up to it. Delays don't help with that because it just builds the anticipation. So let's talk about a few things that I've been seeing crop up over the last week before its release and reasonably address them. Firstly, is this game even an RPG anymore? This comment stems from RPG not actually being part of the various descriptions of the game, like the official Twitter account that now says an open world action adventure story game. And this is the same on Steam, YouTube, even GOG. This text was edited. It previously did say this was an RPG game, and now it doesn't. The source of Cyberpunk is obviously that tabletop style RPG game. And yet we've taken away that term from the official descriptions of this video game. What does that mean? I think maybe it just comes from the fact that this isn't necessarily a standard style of RPG. You don't technically make your own unique character because no matter what you do, you're V. But I don't think you should worry too much about this. There's tons of RPG systems in the game, whether it's the weapons, the upgrades, the modifications, the vehicles. From the very start of the game, you have a choice of 3 life paths, and obviously there's multiple endings to loads of quest lines, let alone the major stuff. And as you probably know, they say that Cyberpunk has bigger and better side questing options than even The Witcher 3, which was massive. So yeah, I guess maybe it won't be a generic RPG with specific stat changes or your own unique character, but it appears to be much more fluid and interesting with its modifications that suit you and your own preferences or playstyle. It still seems massive when it comes to role-playing and progression, but obviously there is that key important downside. The character that we play, V, whether male or female, is just one set voice actor. Therefore, the character is more set in stone. Rather than making your own unique story and adventure through your own character, it's V's choices throughout what is presented. That might bother those who want a true, personal, your own character in this world type of game, but it is undeniably still an RPG. But what about another one? Let me ask you this question that I've actually talked with a few friends about. Are you disappointed that Cyberpunk is a game set in first person? Rage, for example, hasn't been a fan of first person shooters, whereas I love them. Obviously, this is the next major game from CD Projekt Red, who made the Witcher series, which was, of course, in third person. Now they're trying to give you an entirely new experience that's set in a much more restricted perspective. That's my question. Do you like first person, or do you not like it? Personally, I really like seeing my character. When I get a cool outfit or do some sort of new ability, I want to pay attention to that and appreciate it. And it's a lot harder to do that when my camera is much more restricted. But when it comes to actual gameplay, I do find first person makes things a lot easier to work with. It's easier to make a cinematic moment more gripping and intense when you're experiencing it from the ground in the eyes of the character rather than looking down on that character. Hell, first person shooting has always been better than third person shooting for me because it's just much more accurate and in tune with the weapon you're using. And when speaking on this topic, the level designer Max Piers, well, he expressed his hope that players will understand this choice, explaining that they have really thought about it and it was a logical choice to go with first person. At the time, there'd been a recent demo out in which a character pulls a gun on you suddenly, right? Pushing it into your face. He explains that this moment wouldn't have had nearly the same impact if it was all done in third person. I can obviously agree with that. The threat is being pushed onto you in your face compared to, say, on your character you're looking down at. There's a connection you just lose when in third person, and it makes for a more intimate and dialed in experience, and it seems they feel when we play it for ourselves, we'll understand why they made that choice. I definitely think it makes sense logically, but the question is, will it feel good like they claim? But speaking of will it feel good, remember that melee combat? This all came from this clip of the fistfight during a gameplay showcase about 6 months ago. The attacks are strangely delayed here, or even out of sync. There's strange feedback on the blows, as if the hit rate is just kind of off. And obviously the visuals of the fight are janky. Look at these necks moving around like they're barely attached. It is strange, it is clunky, and this was shown during their big gameplay showcase after all. Once again, we're talking about the people who made Witcher 3's melee combat, which was very simple and very repetitive. I always thought it looked great and felt fine, but it was never the greatest mechanically, one of the weaker aspects of that game. And there was no real issues with that for that game, just a fair criticism that didn't really dampen the experience. So why was the reaction to it being kinda generic so dire for Cyberpunk? Once again, I think it might be because of that overhype, this over-expectation. I'd say there's two main points to think about though when it comes to what we saw there, or say sword combat we've seen in other clips. The more you do something in Cyberpunk, the better you get at it. New abilities, new options, more impact. And that certainly seems like we were shown an early melee counter, not one after many hours of gameplay and improvements. So sure, there's that, but back in August, the dev team were open about how they weren't happy with the melee combat and how they were still working on it. This was said after that melee combat was shown, specifically stating that the visual feedback on the hits were wrong, they were going to make it better, they weren't happy with it. So yeah, they knew it was bad, they weren't happy with it, and they've been working on it. So at least they took that feedback seriously and have apparently acted on it, but can they get this right? Because all we can really do right now is hope that it's better and trust them. And they've never had like incredible melee combat before, so who knows? Now moving on, another concern that I've seen sprung up a little bit on, honestly, weirdly, is the visual downgrade that apparently happened. This one just does not seem true. Take this video by PsyQ1, who compared the 2018 graphics to 2020. And somehow, some people think the old gameplay looked better, and I don't know how they can think that. It looks a lot more polished after 2 years of development to me, so that claim just seems ridiculous to me, but I thought I should at least mention it because I've seen it a lot. While on the other hand, a more fair concern, people are a bit worried about, say, Xbox One and PS4 visuals because these systems can't compete with current gen or PC gaming. Devs have actually talked about this. Apparently, after replying to a comment concerned about the console version, Mersin Momot says it will run fine, clearly displaying confidence. So again, kind of like the melee combat, they say it's good to go, that they're confident, and when you actually stop and check old footage of the game compared to current, it has come a long way. But here's the kicker. At the time of recording this video, reviews just started to come out from the press who've had their hands on with the game now. Someone I trust, a YouTuber, SkillUp, who is very thorough in his reviews, apparently stated that they're not letting people use their own recorded gameplay in their review videos. They have to use pre-provided B-roll. And on top of that, he claimed that no console review code was provided to anyone, which means no one can tell you how the game runs on console right now. That's really unusual and a genuine concern. But on that note, my last major concern is in regards to the reviews themselves, which are just breaking now while I was working on this video. It's really important that you are aware of these restrictions they had. They're not allowed to show you any of their own gameplay, only pre-decided footage they've decided you should see. And they only gave journalists a small window to play the game before they could then release their official reviews, giving them a tiny window to actually play the game. Very few people will have played through the whole thing, let alone experience the big picture of the game that's more than just, you know, the main story missions. Now, before you jump to that natural reaction of saying they shouldn't complain, they get to play the game early, I'm not saying that. I mean for those of you who will actually read these reviews or watch those videos to be wary. They're forced to release reviews as soon as possible because people want to know, and their publications or the nature of how this works forces them to release their review ready or not, while also under these awkward restrictions by CD Projekt Red. So I would advise you to take any early review with a grain of salt. So these reviews that come out early in that first minute they're legally allowed to release them might be a bit too soon. We're going to get first impressions or incomplete reviews, which are still perfectly valuable when you see them as that, first impressions, but if you're looking for someone's opinion who has seen the whole picture as it were, maybe wait a few days until after release. Okay, so that's a lot to think about. Obviously, I'm still looking forward to the game, and I know it's still going to be a huge success no matter what happens, but I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys think about some of these points. You know, the people who actually watch this video until the end, to you guys, thank you very much. I'm glad we can have these discussions. With only a couple more days before release, I just want to ask, will you guys be getting this game at launch, or will you wait until later? I don't know, I'm split. I do want to play it, but there's just so much going on right now that I feel like I'm not going to be able to give it my full attention like I want to, like the game probably deserves. Maybe I'll just have to wait maybe a few weeks. But to be honest, that's probably fine, right? Like it's a single player game. I can play it whenever I want, whenever I'm ready. Anyway though, until next time, I've been Hollow, you've been you, and thanks for watching.